Hello vinyl community, welcome back to any returning viewers and hello to any new viewers. So today's video is my David Bowie box set build up. So I'm filming this about 3 days before the issue of the big Ziggy Stardust, what was supposed to be I think 50th anniversary box set, and that's coming out on Friday. Got my order in very early, went with a company I don't normally use because it was significantly cheaper than the well-known UK massive one that most of us order things from. So fingers crossed that goes to plan. There was some like offers for pre-ordering and money off if you were a first customer, so hopefully it will be with me, and as soon as it arrives I will share it with you. But I thought I'd do a little reflection of where we are in the Bowie kind of reissue campaign and where I came in with David Bowie. So I'm a big David Bowie fan. I think if the Beatles are the most influential band out there, I think without a doubt David Bowie is the most influential solo kind of artist. I think if you look at contemporary music, his influence is still absolutely everywhere. Someone like Harry Styles, for instance, is kind of mining that androgynous kind of shag everything that moves kind of look, and he's also copying a lot of the music as well. But Bowie for me is one of my, you know, if there's a top 5 artists that I kind of buy and collect everything, he's in there. So even things like a mug, which I found for £1 in a charity shop, couldn't leave it behind, you know, that's kind of Bowie fan I am. So where did I start with David Bowie? So as a child of the 70s and a teenager of the 80s, I kind of came in to David Bowie, believe it or not, with Tin Machine, that well-known side project that was met with kind of scepticism and indignation at the time. But actually I love that album. The opening single that we got in the UK was called Under the Gun. It's just such a great song, and I think David Bowie was moving away from the kind of pop stardom of the mid-80s, that he released some cracking singles in that decade, but the albums did start to go down in quality, particularly Tonight and Never Let Me Down. But I think I personally thought Tin Machine was a step in the right direction, and he embraced on that album bands like Sonic Youth and the Pixies, and it was nice to see a nod from Kurt Cobain on the Unplugged album when he covered The Man Who Sold the World, as a bit of a nod to Bowie supporting that early kind of New York kind of indie punk scene. But Bowie, where'd you start really? So for me, started with Tin Machine, and I was lucky enough then they were doing the Ryko Sound and Vision reissue campaign, and again David Bowie was right at the front there of CD reissue programs, rather than just bunging out you know, a poorly mastered kind of bare bones release. You got bonus tracks, new artwork, you know, pictures, stuff that hadn't been released before, and he even toured it. So the Sound and Vision kind of era was brilliant for me as a new fan starting off, and I literally did start from the start and work my way up to what he was doing there. And I stuck with him ever since. In the 90s, his new albums were not particularly popular or well received. Every review started with the best album since Scary Monsters, and some of them were really good, but they never really sold bucket loads. I think things like the Buddha of Suburbia soundtrack is one of his little hidden gems, but you know, I bought that on CD when it came out, and I think it barely scraped the charts. So David Bowie, I think by the end of the 90s, he was in such a kind of lowly position that I think Virgin Records didn't want to put out the Toy album, so that remained unreleased till after his death, and he really got back on track I think with the Heathen era in the 2000s. But I've diligently stuck by him, as I do with all the kind of people that I love. Someone like Prince, for instance, I stuck with Prince through thick and thin till his sad passing, and I did the same with Bowie really, and did get to see him live once, only the once unfortunately, but he was absolutely brilliant. He's one of those people that his voice even in a big cavern like the NEC in Birmingham, when he did some of the slower, more reflective stuff, his voice was just impeccable. So absolutely fantastic concert. slightly spoiled my wife getting a migraine, so I missed the Ziggy Stardust encore, so I won't hold it against you, dear. But yeah, so but yeah, great concert, great man, great artist, and sadly missed. I still struggle to listen to the final album without welling up, because the lyrics on that album are just gut-wrenching, because obviously you knew what was coming. So there is a rumour that David Bowie, knowing that that he was dying, had mapped out a reissue campaign, you know, to follow him once he'd gone. And it started with like the studio albums coming out in box sets, and I didn't really bother with those because I've got it all several times over on CD and on vinyl. But they've then started more recently to kind of hit the vaults and piece together kind of box sets of unreleased demos and radio sessions, some live stuff. So there's an absolute treasure trove of stuff that's been released over the last 4 or 5 years, and obviously the big box set comes at the end of the week. So where shall we start? So let's start at the start. So the first album, which was called Space Oddity, was reissued with a 50th anniversary new mix by Tony Visconti. They then released several kind of singles box sets, but I'm glad to say they gathered them all together in a box set which is absolutely brilliant, called Conversation Piece, and this comes out in a lovely wooden kind of slipcase box. I'll show you to the screen if you can read that what's on it, but it's a really nice set, this really interesting listen as well, and it goes through a load of home demos of loads of songs I wasn't aware of, something called the Mercury demos. Again, she's starting to then look at getting signed, and he's rehearsing things that all come from that first album, like Space Oddity and stuff like that. Again, loads of unreleased songs. You get stuff from the Decca Years, which is that was actually his second album. There was another album called David Bowie which came before that, so you get stuff from there, and you also then actually get on there the CD version of that. So great set. Really hard to show these and do them justice. Hopefully the camera will pick up the spot varnishing that goes there, and it's an absolutely mega book. CDs are tucked away in the covers there, bit of cardboard to protect it, and then you do get some absolutely stunning photographs from all eras of David. Very hard to show these and do them justice, kind of tape boxes and stuff like that, and then at the end there's more discs at the end there, but it's an absolutely brilliant set. Five CDs, and a treasure trove. And really interesting to just sit and listen to in order, because you see the progression of how he goes and where he went. It's very folky, the first album. Well, keep calling it the first album, I don't know, the second album, but it is one of my favourite albums actually, and oddly Space Oddity that's on there really doesn't fit on the album. That was produced by Gus Dudgeon, who's Elton John's producer, and the rest of it's Tony Visconti, but I love that album actually. That's one of my kind of favourites. I'd also like to point out this time that an author called Simon Goddard, who did this book, which is a brilliant book. This is a Ziggy Stardust kind of imagining that Ziggy was a real character and a real alien landing on Earth. That's a fantastic read. He always does things that are kind of a little bit from the left field. His books, they kind of tell the story but in a different way. His book on the Rolling Stones is fabulous as well, Rockers Rolling, I think, and he does that in like an 18th century, as if they're like minstrels from the Thackeray era. But this is a really good read. But what he started to do as these box sets coming out, and he's now ahead of them, he did a series of books. So you got obviously Bowie 70, 71, and obviously this then is the Ziggy era 72, and then Aladdin Sane in 73, and he's just put out the 74 one, which will be the Diamond Dogs era. If you haven't got these, I would heartily recommend them. They are fabulous reads, and again, they're not done as a factual kind of autobiography. They are a real-time story. So the 1971, which talks about David Bowie's brother, is written as if it's from the point of view of David Bowie's brother. So who obviously there's some very infamous stories that he was sectioned and in mental institutions, and that album, that's actually a the actual institution, I think, is portrayed on the cover of that. And I think I didn't realise just how much that affected David Bowie, but those books are brilliant. So if you get the chance to read those, do. And the Ziggy Stardust one, the 72 one's great, because it's also told a little bit from the point of view of the spiders from Mars. And Bowie's like a shadowy figure through that. So excellent books. If you can get those, I would heartily recommend them. Simon Goddard doesn't pay me for this. I'm a fan, and they're brilliant books. So we just touched on it there. So we had Conversation Pieces, the first kind of big box set, which covered the pre kind of 70s era, and then the Man Who Sold the World album was done under this kind of format, so slightly smaller, just 2 discs instead of the 5 on there. I think this was around the COVID era, so I don't know whether there were plans to change things or do things differently, but this came out separately rather than being included in there, which it was with the first box set. So this is the Man Who Sold the World album, but reissued under the original title, which was the Metrobolist, and again a 50th anniversary mix by Tony Visconti. So the only criticism of that one is they didn't replicate the original track order, but of the original planned album. But again, you then get a nice 2 CD set. They've replicated the Mercury labels. One of these books are hard to show, but again, like the other one, in smaller formats, but lots of text, labels and things like that. And again, you get things like BBC sessions, the Looking Glass Murders, which is when he did his miming, and did some songs based on the God, I can't even say it, Parrot in Turquoise. Apologies for that. Single mixes, radio mixes, and then some 2020 mixes of songs that were singles and single versions. So again, it's a nice little set that you could pick that up pretty cheap when it kind of came out, and I think it dropped quite heavily because it's not quite on the up to the standard of the first one, but it's a nice little addendum. I'm glad to say, I'll show you that as well. That's the vinyl version of that missing album, which obviously in the UK came with the dress sleeve, but that was the American sleeve, I do believe. That's on the back. So that's again one of my favourite Bowie kind of albums. So for the next album they did, which would have been his 4th album, is the very famous Hunky Dory. So what they did on that one, they went back to the big box design. So that's that. And that's what's on it. I don't know whether you'll be able to read that if you pause it, but loads of stuff on here. So there's also a Blu-ray included on here, so you get a full there was some BBC sessions issued at Bowie, but here everything's kind of gathered together. So you get songwriting demos for the album, a BBC radio in concert introduced by John Peel, radio sessions by my good friend Bob Harris, who I've met, and he signed my book for me when he was doing a talk on the Beatles. So Whispering Bob, lovely fella. Live at the Friars Owlsbury in September '71, CD of alternate mixes, the Bowie promo mixes, which were early versions that were released on a joint album with Dana Gillespie, and all the Bowie versions are finally gathered on CD here. 2021 mixes, and there was a remaster that's only on the Blu-ray. So, and also on the Blu-ray there was something called a Divine Symmetry, which is an alternative version of Hunky Dory, which is here. So they released that separately on vinyl, and what that is, it's effectively the album you all know and love, but slightly differently, and really, really good. And there's a song called Bombers that's added to this that goes just before the Andy Warhol song, and they chopped that off the release version, naturally, for good reason, because it spoils the album. But yeah, that's a nice pickup. So what was nice is, as long with the CD version, they did give you some vinyl stuff. So again, the Hunky Dory reissue came with this lovely big book, and again, I don't know if the camera will pick up the spot varnishing kind of detail that's throughout these, and it's an absolutely brilliant set again, up to the standards of the Conversation piece. So discs in the back and the front, there you go, nice hard back to protect them, and then just tons and tons of pictures. And yeah, so I would heartily recommend these. The music's, as you would expect, brilliant, but the whole package is lovely. You also in there got a little kind of notebook. This is a fun thing. So this is a replica of David Bowie's notebooks of the time, and on the back, you know, record storage box. And these are great. These are great fun. So you've got kind of him working out chords and notes of the songs, some track listings, you know, things like Moon Age Daydream, proposed for this album, you know, lyrics. It's a really, really nice little thing to have. So they've done a great job with these sets so far, which I think at the 15-minute mark brings me very nicely to what comes next in the Bowie camp. So we have to come then I think it's called Rock and Roll Star, which is going to be a big, I think it's 5 CDs, 1 Blu-ray set, and there's also a vinyl album, which is going to be like an alternative version of the Ziggy Stardust album. For Record Store Day, they did put a little teaser out, which is Waiting in the Sky, and this is before the Starman came to Earth. This is a proposed track listing for the album before he wrote the song Starman. So you get some songs on here that were exercised from the final album. Now I have to say, all of them for good reason. I think the couple of them ended up as B-sides. So there's a Chuck Berry cover, Round and Round, which rightly doesn't fit on the album. I'm glad they took that off. Amsterdam, the Jack Brel song, again, there's B-side fine, but it didn't work on this album. But it kind of gave, I think, David Bowie an impression of the type of song he was trying to create to things. So I think something like Rock and Roll Suicide would have replaced Amsterdam. Some ones you all know and love. Ziggy's on here, Hang On To Yourself, Star, Lady Stardust, 5 Years Solo, Moon Age Daydream. Starman as yet hadn't been written, so the songs that were here that were originals was Velvet Goldmine and Holy Holy, and they're both kind of good songs, and when you listen to them in the context of an outtake or unreleased track, they're fine. But putting them, when I listened to this album with those songs on there, you thought all the decisions you made for Ziggy Stardust, there's a few copies there behind me, you did the right thing in taking them off. So it's an interesting listen, this, beautifully mastered, etc. Sounds great, but I think all of the decisions that were made in the Bowie camp ahead of what became the final Ziggy Stardust release were right. So that's my first Bowie video. So hope you enjoyed that one. Obviously I'll show the box set when it arrives. I've got a busy weekend, so I want to kind of wait and absorb it a bit and have a good listen to it before I kind of show it. I'll try and live with it a bit. Thank you for all those that have recently subscribed. If you haven't yet, I have a vast music collection of all shapes and sizes, and I cover a lot of artists. So if you're not a fan of one thing, I'm sure there'll be something coming along. I try and put little clues dotted about as to what's coming next. So if you look at the shelves behind me, it might give you an idea of what's coming up in the future or not, or what's gone on in the past. And sometimes at the end of videos I put little Easter eggs and stuff like that, so it's always worth staying to the end, but not every time. I like to keep you guessing. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that, and let's hope that the Ziggy box leaps up to the hype and that we all enjoy it. So this is my Bowie t-shirt. I am such a fan. I actually went to the Leicester Space Centre where they've got a massive planetarium, and I saw a Ziggy Stardust tribute band, and it was fabulous. Yeah, it opened with Space Oddity as the cosmos was all around you. So yeah, can't beat David Bowie, can you? So much missed, and thank you for watching.